Welcome to our virtual summit. Thank you all for joining us today. Hello, my name is Melanie Tuck, and I am a regional sales manager with eDynamic Learning. Today, we have some wonderful panelists. Our panelists today have extensive experience with our exciting topic, helping students earn industry certifications. And I'm so excited to help everyone understand more about this topic. So first, on our panel today, we have Tanika Lester. She is the manager of the Division of College and Career Technical Education with Shelby County Schools in Memphis, Tennessee. She began her career in the classroom as a business technology teacher. After 11 years, she moved into administration and began advocating for the career and technical education programs. Tanika understands the positive effects of career and technical education and works tirelessly to ensure that all Shelby County students are exposed to the programs that provide the technical and academic skills necessary for the success in future careers. Tanika herself has the MOS certifications, the IC3 certifications, and last year alone, and I watched this in progress myself, so I was excited to see this. Last year alone, she led her academic team of advisors with the students in Shelby County to earn over 2,728 industry recognized certifications. So thank you, Tanika. We are so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Good. Now, next on our panelists, we have brought to the table Art Maxwell. Art Maxwell is the territory manager for Certiport. Certiport is the leading provider of certification industry exams. Their globally recognized credentials are aimed at enhancing individuals' productivity, marketability, and value. Art has spent the last 8 years working with several different teachers and administrators, bringing challenging yet achievable industry recognized certifications to the classroom. This prepares students for their college campaign or their future careers. Now, Art was a very integral part in some things that happened with Miss Tanika Lester. So I got to watch both of these two people in their action, I guess is the best way to say that. But Art himself also is certified as a Microsoft Office specialist with all of the MOS certifications and IC3 digital literacy certifications, and currently working on the Adobe certification. So congratulations, Art.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. And finalists, thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today. Michael Rodriguez, I'm so sorry, Mike, is a high school computer science and game design teacher for Salinas Union High School District, who has helped students earn industry certifications. With over 12 years of experience in educational technology, working as a computer technician for multiple school districts, he brings a very unique perspective to our panel today, from teaching and being the end user experience, as well as the technical side of the applications and EdTech solutions. He also currently works as a SME writer for eDynamic Learning, an instructor for Future Citizens Foundation, and creates technology-related tutorial videos on YouTube. Wow, Mike, you're a busy guy.
That's right.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm so excited for all of us to be together today, and thank you, panelists, for joining us. Many of you in our audience have provided questions. Those questions are going to be used as we go through our panel today. So most of you notice on your virtual call that you are muted. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat box in the GoToWebinar chat to the right. We'll do our best to make sure that all the questions get answered today. If we don't have time to address them all, we're going to make sure that we follow up with you after the fact. So we've got an hour to discuss industry certifications. And so I'm so excited to have 3 people that I know are professionals and very, very versed within this area. So let's get started. But some of the people in our audience may not have the full understanding of what is an industry certification. So I'm going to start with you, Tanika, if you don't mind. What is an industry certification?
So when I think about an industry certification, what immediately comes to my mind is it's like a trophy. It's a trophy that that student can take and show off. And what it lets the industry professionals know is that that student has the knowledge and the skills that are necessary to be successful in that particular area. So whenever I'm talking to the students, I tell them that when a professional sees that you have an industry certification, it's like that trophy that you can take and you can strut around and show off. And it lets them know, okay, you know, this student knows something. He's got some skills and he has some knowledge that they can take and they can be, you know, successful in the workplace.
Oh, yeah, that's a great way to put it. Just a trophy. You know, it's just something that they can carry with them. And Art, let's kind of play off that a little bit. So what can an industry certification do for students? Tanika touched on it a little bit. What else could industry certification do for a student?
You know, we talk about industry certifications and the value that they add to a student and their potential college and career campaigns. You know, wherever they're headed next after a high school, and they're moving into a college program, trying to get added in to the program of study that they're trying to get to, or whether they're trying to land that perfect job that they're hoping to get. Those credentials, those industry certifications often are stackable, that stack on top of each other. Those trophies, if you say, are in a display case right there, traveling with that person. And it just adds so much leverage. If I, as a potential job candidate, come to the table, I sit in an interview and I say I have Microsoft Office skills because that's one of the job requirements listed in the job requisition, I can say that all I want, but then having that paper signed by the CEO of Microsoft saying, no, this person really does have that, it adds so much weight, it adds leverage, and all of a sudden I'm that much more in front of the other candidates. I have a better potential to land that job or get myself into that program of study in my college career and really just excel forward.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. And I like how that, you know, it's all in the employer. So what the employer looking for, right? And
Right.
so Mike, I'm going to kind of bank off of what Art has just said and ask you the question of, you're on the other realm, right? So you've been in the industry, in the different industries, especially in the digital space. So what sort of certifications do you think is most valuable to an employer?
Well, that's the interesting thing, especially about the areas that I teach, since game design is so all-encompassing is computer science. You know, you could be a computer scientist in a lot of different fields. So what I always recommend to my students is figure out your core technologies, figure out what you enjoy the most, figure out what you want to work in the most, and then focus on those, because someone who goes in with a general computer science degree might be very valuable, but someone who goes in with a very specific computer science degree and a Unity degree or a 3D design degree is going to be a lot more valuable to that specific role. So I always recommend having students look for the specific jobs they're looking for and find out what certifications are more directly in line with that role versus over-encompassing certifications. Like in the IT field, you might get an A+ certification, but you might be going against 50 other people who have A+ certifications. But if you choose a certification that's specific to your role, it might be a lot more rare to find someone with those sets of skills.
Right. So in your line, so in the web line design, Mike, what would be a certification that if you were a potential employer, what would be a certification that you would look for as a potential employee?
Web is interesting because there's a lot of different web technologies. So a lot of that would depend on the employer. I'd want to look into, obviously, the generalized Microsoft certifications. Those are always nice to have. But you might want to look into the coding languages you use most. If you're using JavaScript a lot, for example, you might want to find a certification specifically in JavaScript so that the employer knows that you're versed in the language they use, as opposed to just web technologies.
Good. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. So Tanika, I want to ask you about the benefits and advantages of earning an industry certification, because as an educator, you see a lot of kids that as they're going through school and as they're trying to you know, just complete high school in general, right? So how do you leverage with the students the benefits and advantages of going ahead and earning that industry certification?
I actually think Art touched on it a little bit the last time. If you take two students and you put them at the table, of course, industry professionals are going to steer towards that student that already has the certification. So what I tell a lot of the students is that it gives them, an advantage. They have an advantage over all of the other applicants, because if they graduate from high school and they already have that certification, it just gives them a step ahead of all of the other candidates. And another thing that I stress to them, especially with the Microsoft certifications, is, I tell them I didn't get the certifications until I was grown. I was grown and I was teaching. And now students have the opportunity to get the certification, as sophomores, juniors in high school. And that just gives them, a way better advantage towards being hired. We've had several students that upon graduation, when employers see that they have those certifications, they're hired on the spot, because any Microsoft certification is going to be beneficial in any area.
Yeah.
So, it just gives them a step ahead of all the other applicants.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Totally agree with that. And now when we're talking about certifications, you're preparing students to go into, sometimes on to secondary and sometimes straight into the job force, right?
Yes.
And I know you've probably asked this question to Art, so I'm going to ask this question to Art. So Art, are there certifications for all the different programs? So is there a certification for the program that people are teaching now?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I'll be honest, Certiport and being a representative of Certiport, we obviously partner with and work with a number of different industry partners like Microsoft, Adobe, Autodesk. Mike mentioned even Unity, which is a newer certification for our program. There are certifications that span a wide range of programs of study, of interests. And I really like the way Mike mentioned it. When a student finds something that they really like, that drives them, that makes them excited, it's no longer that they're studying something because they've been told they have to. They're really applying themselves and learning something that they are going to enjoy for the rest of their life. I'm going to use Unity, Mike, as an example, because I had a chance, as we picked up the Unity program and started putting together the certification, our team got a chance to go to a virtual reality gaming station and play some games and see what that looks like, and to talk to some high school students that worked there, and to see that sparkle in their eye of how excited they were to start learning Unity in their classroom while working at this gaming location. It was really neat. It was virtual. It was in your face. It was fun. You could see that they were excited about what they were doing. They were working in the classroom for specific certifications, not just Unity, but others as well. Like Tanika mentions, a Microsoft certification for Word or PowerPoint, Excel may sound very basic, but it gives that student a foundation and a learning pathway, a program of how to study through these certifications and earn them. And when they find success with one, they often move on to another. And that's kind of where I mentioned before, the stackability. Now a student that's excited has a base foundation in, say, Microsoft, which, as Tanika mentioned, is very applicable to almost any job in the world, whether you're a nurse, whether you're an automotive technician, whether it doesn't really matter. Whether it's us right here talking on a GoToMeeting call, there's some application that applies there. But then if I dive off into a more specific certification like a Unity or an Autodesk, or maybe I want to be a creative designer and Adobe speaks to me and I really love playing in the Adobe products, there's so much that can be used there to move into college or career.
Yeah, and seeing the students be energized, that's really important. And I'm going to play off of that a little bit. And Mike, you've been a teacher in the space as well. So how can educators provide opportunities for industry certifications inside and outside of the classroom?
So the main thing is exposure. A lot of students may not be, but a lot of students will be very self-motivated to get these certifications, especially like you said, if you've already gotten one certification, the stackability, they want to keep on adding, they want to feel valued, they want to show that value. So they want, have something to show off for the time they've put into all this work. So you definitely want to expose them to as many different types of certifications as possible. And as a school, usually you'll have opportunities to subsidize the cost for students. So whether that means the school purchasing a set of licenses to take the tests, or whether it's maybe a discount for educators or students, there's usually some method to allow students to get them at a lower cost. I'd also recommend, like you guys said about Microsoft certifications, I think it's important to expand even to Google. A lot of times these are very inexpensive, $25 certifications that even if maybe they don't get their career job right after high school, maybe they're working in an office job for now, or even retail, those certifications are going to help even in those situations. It's going to make sure they have a steady job until they're ready to move into their industry. And I don't think, especially now at these times, you can find a job that you wouldn't need Google skills or Microsoft skills.
Right.
I think I remember, if I can add there, I remember my first career job sitting in an office. Day one on the job, I was hired as a marketing manager, and the boss said, for the first few days as you're ramping up, we'd like you just to watch these training videos. And they were all about Google and Microsoft Office products and just the basic day-to-day things I was going to be using. And I wish so bad, like Tanika says, I had gone back to having a certification in high school. That would have jump-started me right into that career.
Yeah.
And Melanie, I want to add to what Mike said. Once students found an area that they're interested in, it's not really like they're doing classwork. It's something that they're working towards. And one thing I like that the State Department has done for us, and about this, they've already outlined, our entire programs where they're all aligned to a certification. Right. Then the courses that we offer that aren't aligned, we partner with industry professionals across the city. And they tell us other certifications that they think the students should, work towards. And the student knows that once they find that particular area they're interested in, they know all of the certifications that go along with it. And that gives them something to work towards, their entire 4 years in high school. I think it makes it all worthwhile. It helps them tie it together.
Yeah, and that sounds like a wonderful, encouragement for them, because look, you just led almost 3,000 kids to a certification last year, which you were on tap to do better this year, but thank you, COVID. But anyway, we won't go there. we won't discuss that. But at the same time, encouraging students move forward, and you really touched on that just a few minutes ago. So how do you take Shelby County Schools with so many different diverse students? You got such diversity within the students that you work with. How do you encourage all those students to earn that industry certification?
I think the probably the most important or the biggest incentive is we have such great partnerships with several of the big companies in Memphis, and a lot of the times they provide us with internships. And, that's always something, students are ready to work towards a job after high school. So, they may get a welding certification, and as soon as they graduate, they're already ready to go to work. I mean, if they want to go back to school, they can, but if not, they can move right into a job. For others, it's something just as simple as giving them an honor cord at graduation. They're excited about the cords. We have, even though graduation is postponed, of course, we have several students already inquiring about their honor cord, for graduation. So now I'm going to have to try to go back to the office and dig through boxes to find cords, for those students. It's something that they look forward to. And that's what we usually try to do. Any type of incentive. Of course, we had a big celebration planned this year, to honor those students that had gotten certifications. But, that was kind of cut short with the COVID-19. But we are partnering with communications. We're going to highlight them on the website, and just really shout out the schools that have gotten certifications, and really to highlight the ones that are still working at home. We have, several certifications that are available remotely at home, thanks to ART. Pulling several of those through for us. But we really have some students that are working hard and still trying to get their certifications at home.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you, like in the face of what's going on right now. I know that you and Art have worked together to ensure that some of those kids that have worked so hard have received their certifications. Art, how did that work? How are you able to allow I mean, how did all this happen in the face of COVID, and what certifications were available?
Yeah, great question. And it's really a question that constantly evolves because we're all in a situation that's unfamiliar. We're learning and we're working from home, and we're having webinars like this for conferences we'd hoped had been in person and now are from home. And really, Certiport has their testing process, proprietary testing software that we use to deliver the exams in the classroom, allowing a teacher in their classroom to be the proctor for that exam, and for a student to be able to earn in the same environment that they learned. And it really helps that comfort level for the student, helps that testing environment to be very familiar for them, and helps their chances of passing. But what do we do when we're not in the classroom? Certiport had to drop back and really put some ideas that had been probably way back on the back shelf, some ideas and thoughts we'd had about our testing process, and brought some of them forward. We've been working really hard, and though Tanika said this is me, it's very much not. It's an all hands on deck at Certiport. We have some very talented engineers and very talented people that have created a solution that allows a student to access a virtual machine. Talk about technology at its finest. One of the coolest scenarios where we're able to spin up our testing software and the appropriate licensing in a virtual environment, then inviting a teacher to connect with their student and prepare that student for a specific day and time where they can come and take an exam. The student's then given a web link, and we can share that web link with them and virtually proctor their exam. It's much more involved than that, but that at its finest is how it's working. It's been really, really amazing. We started our first week as a beta test with a few schools, I think in Florida, doing a couple hundred exams, and that was a stress and a strain on everybody in the company. And within a matter of weeks, we have now opened it up to where we're giving thousands of exams a day. We're trying really hard to catch every senior, every junior, every kid that was putting their heart and soul into their own progression that was engaged, and they want to finish that off. I've been hosting pretty much daily training calls with not just Tanika's district, but others as well, and making sure that the teachers know how to engage and where to go to find the information, and which simply can be found on our website. And it's just been amazing to watch these students. And I've had a chance myself even to proctor virtually, 10 students at a time, and I'm watching their screens, and I can see them progress, and I see the cursor stop as they maybe don't know how to answer a question, and they're trying to remember, and then you see them all of a sudden get it and they answer the question. It's inspiring. It's really neat to see these kids. And then at the end of their exam, they've passed and they have their score report, and they're so excited. And you give them a one final message on a notepad saying, congratulations, good luck with the next exam you're going to take. And you usually get a very excited, very misspelled thank you, because they're so excited to type back to you, and they're on their way. And you can see that engagement, that personal level of I want more. And even now in a virtual environment, it's really inspiring.
And I think it's been important for the students across the nation, in the midst of all of this, to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Getting and receiving that credential, that's the light at the end of the tunnel, realistically. So when all of our nation opens back up, some of us are open up a little bit more than others already, but when it opens back up, you want them to be able to say, hey, this didn't stop me, I can still go. And now they've still got their certifications, and I'm thankful that that's happened with Certiport. So I'm going to piggyback off of, so that's an experience of what we've had to go through over the last few months, right? But that's not the norm. That's not the norm. Normally, it would be in the classroom. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you, what's usually involved in proctoring an in-class certification? Because that's something that you've had to do yourself, right? So what's involved in proctoring the in-class certification?
Yeah, so mine kind of stemmed from a different reason than our normal shelter-in-place situation. A lot of my students, it was financially not possible for us to get them all over to our testing center. Our testing center was in San Jose, not super far, but it would have been, we would have had to find the budget in order to get everyone over there in order to test my students. So thankfully, even before all this happened, I was able to be trained as a proctor. And it was actually a really fun experience. Not only do you get the immediate feedback of how your students did, but even after thankfully I had all of my students pass for my certification in my class. So I was very excited for that. But right after, I noticed that there was almost more interest in the industry, because they were coming to me with questions from the test, like, hey, I saw this question and you reminded me of this, but I don't think we learned that. What do you know about this, or what do you know about that? So we start to actually connect their learning to the tests themselves. And just kind of piggybacking off of what Tanika said too, a lot of it is going into the classroom. So how you mentioned job shadowing, we actually tried out virtual job shadowing for the first time. And that was actually getting an industry professional on video camera, talking to the class. And when the class had questions, he'd actually answer back. So it was the perfect kind of, like, you don't have to actually go and do the job, but you can still get that feedback and get responses and get excitement from the students, even if it's just an hour call commitment from the person who you've contacted to do this. So I think it's, a lot of it can be done in the classroom now. The job shadowing, the actual testing, and then the follow-up from the testing and figuring out how everyone did and any questions they have. I think it's really, really useful. The actual process is very easy. It's, if you've ever done like regular school exams that you have to proctor, you know, you have to keep everyone a certain distance apart. You're not allowed to have them see each other's screens or ask questions or talk during it, keep the doors closed, that kind of thing. But it's a very simple process, and as long as it's taken seriously, it's a great way for students to earn their certifications.
And that's what you've been training a lot on here lately, right, Art? Or no, that's one of your big trainings, how to proctor.
Yeah.
How to
There's always that fear for the
that.
teacher.
And so, Art, I'm going to come back to you real quick. So we've talked about industry certifications, and this is kind of one Art and Tanika can both, I'm going to ask Art first, and then Tanika, you can take it from a different perspective. So as a teacher or administrator, how do I start if I'm going to be working toward an industry certification? What should I do to start?
That is a great question. And I can't tell you how many times I get an email in my inbox saying, we've been talking about this for a while as an administration. Where do I go? I hope you're the right guy. And if you're not, can you point me in the right direction? and really, the best place to start is, I'm gonna just throw our website, which is just certreport.com, is a great place to start. We have listed right there on the front page the certifications that we offer. You can scroll through program by program and see the programs of study. So depending on what program you're looking for or where you want to put a certification, it's a great place to start. Okay, shameless plug over. I can also help answer any questions that are needed. I'm very familiar with national standards, state standards, and kind of how to build a program. I like to often I say working with a certification program really has three parts: your learning materials and what's involved in engaging a student and getting them interested in the program, practice materials, you know, a place for a student to fail in a safe place, learn from their mistakes and get better prior to sitting for the third part, which is your certification exam and actually passing, getting that fist pump moment, that super excited, you know, the 90-pound little girl that screams at the top of her lungs, woohoo, I passed. You know, that's the ultimate goal. But how do we go from nothing to having a student, you know, fist pump in the classroom or giving them bones, you know, or virtually saying, congratulations, you did great. And really that just comes with asking questions, talking to a representative from the industry, speaking with someone like Tanika, who's been there, connecting with a peer who already is working with these programs. We can answer questions quickly, start you in the right direction. And like Mike says, it's really not overly complicated. We can work with you and help you get things set up in your own classroom so that you can administer and give those exams to the students.
Yeah, and Tanika, do you have anything to kind of add to that? Like, as an administrator, where do you get started if you want to start a career tech program and you want to make sure those students are going for their industry certification?
At this point, I think our district, we pretty much make it plain and clear. That's our ultimate goal. That's one we have, you know, 4 to 5 goals and industry certifications. Everyone knows in the district that it's one of our priority goals. And this year, you know, before everything happened, our goal was 3,500, and we were trending to get that, you know, to even surpass that goal. So I think all of the students know once you enroll in a CTE course, that's the goal for the year. Everybody is working towards a certification, and the teachers know the standards are set up where once they teach the information, it's preparing the students to pass that certification. And then we have the practice materials to go along with it. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, Mike, so they're talking about how, an administrator would start. I noticed Art mentioned using, materials. Tanika, mentioned using materials. And Mike, you're actually one of our writers at eDynamic Learning. So what kind of process, so helping people that are watching today, what kind of process do you go through when you write a course that might lead to an industry certification? Because you've wrote courses for eDynamic Learning before and other providers. So what is the thought process behind that?
Well, I think it's very similar. It's a very similar process writing courses versus writing exams. They're almost always based on standards. So you have your state standards, you have your core standards, and you have your industry standards. And usually each state will have their own set of industry standards for CTE. So what I did is when I actually became a game design teacher, we didn't have we only had a standards list. We didn't have any kind of curriculum or anything to teach from. So they basically just said, here's your course, have fun, figure it out. And I spent most of that first year putting together that curriculum based on the standards. And then after I finished, I realized that there was a certification for it, and it was the exact same standards I'd written for. So now when I write courses for eDynamic, I kind of look at what states they're going out to. I kind of look at the core standards. I try and align as many as possible. And a lot of the procedures that go into writing a course do rely on making sure that standards are both met and assessed. So I think that's the direction that you go when you're creating it, is basically just focusing on standards, focusing on what people expect the user to learn and know in the industry. I think that's the best way to kind of connect everything together, is standards and based on where they're located. I also think that it's important to connect those certifications not just with sort of actual certifications, but completions. So they might get a certificate of completion for completing a game design course, and they, on top of that, they might prove their skills with a certification. So I think that kind of also stacks as well.
So Melanie, can I add to that one as well? When it comes to certifications, Mike, that you bring up the standards, the state standards, and that your course kind of builds towards that. And I would say from the certification side, speaking from Certiport and the exams that we've created, know that those objectives, we call them objective domains, so the exam objectives, are often built in partnership with the company that we're working with. Let's take Adobe, for example. Adobe has a very broad community of users, of creative designers, of graphic designers, of web designers that are constantly feeding information back to Adobe and helping better their products. As we work with them and their product lineup, we're constantly evaluating what is needed in the community, what's needed by industry, what should be on the exam that a student should know prior to entering the job force or entering a design program at the university. Is the exam asking them to properly prove those skills, and are they walking away with the right pieces? So we also use a set of standards and objective domains, and more often than not, it's been my experience that a subject matter expert like Mike, writing for a company like eDynamic Learning, is often aware of those standards, like Mike says, and building the courseware towards those standards. And often I found in classrooms, teachers aren't just teaching to the objectives, because I can go through a bulleted list of A, B, C, D and make sure. Yeah. But Mike, my guess would be that from industry, you're passionate about what you do as well. Game design is amazing and it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say my guess would be you're not just offering the students those standards, but you're offering them tips and tricks, your own favorite things. You're inspiring them in your own way, which often happens in a classroom. And those students are leaving with not just the objectives and the industry standards, but with more, with a passion, with a drive, with the favorite things that Mr. Rodriguez taught them in their classroom. You know, it adds so much to your courseware and your curriculum.
Exactly. I feel like a lot of times it happens really quickly too. Like I'll set up a slide that covers one standard, and then I'll go off on a tangent and talk about that slide for 20 minutes, you know. Or similarly, like I'll have that virtual job shadowing thing, and they'll start asking questions about stuff, and we'll just start actually talking about, you know, tech talk and getting right into the the nitty gritty of it and be like, all right, well, let's actually go back to that standard and make sure that we remember what we're talking about. But it really does help to care about what you're teaching. If you're doing the research beforehand, if you're looking into the topics beforehand, it doesn't matter if you just wrote it the day before and are going to present it, you're going to have more to talk about. So it's gonna, yeah.
And Melanie, to just kind of piggyback a little bit off of Mike. So he's saying, you know, with the standards, you have to use the standards and the industry certification standards to kind of build a curriculum. So what we are going to kind of branch out and do this year is we're partnering with a lot of, well, at least one company, FedEx. And of course, they know what's needed in industry. They know what's needed to pass that certification. So they're going to come and help the teachers write the curriculum so that it aligns and pulls together. And then that way, when the student gets to the end and they get the certification, they're already prepared to move them right into a job at FedEx. So that makes, again,
I wish I would have had that when I started. Yeah.
it makes it worthwhile. And you know, FedEx, working with FedEx, they have multiple careers, just different opportunities that, you know, the students are interested in. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good. Yeah.
Being able to have industry partners is so important, especially when you're working toward the certification, having that for the internships and everything else. I mean, that really is an important part of if anybody's working on building their CTE program and building their certifications. And I think one of the biggest, just like you said earlier, Tanika, one of the biggest encouragements is to have that industry leader be a part of your program. And I think that's just one of those caveats to a great CTE program, is to have the industry certifying what you are trying to get them to build toward.
Right.
Yeah, I think that is very, very
when they're in the classroom with the teacher, no offense, Mike, you know, sometimes they think, oh, the teacher's just telling me this. But when you have professionals come in and back the teacher up, they start to think, oh, well, maybe Mr. Rodriguez did know what he was talking about. You know, it solidifies what the teacher is telling them every day in the classroom.
And it's on a different level too. I mean, if you have students learning from like a industry expert, like for game design, if they were talking to someone at EA, it's not just that they're learning the same skills and they're like, oh, great, they use those skills at EA, but you start to notice students being on their phones playing EA games. They're talking about games that at home from EA, and they start to feel like they're in the industry and they work at that company. And, you know, it brings them closer to where they're trying to get. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree. I totally agree. So we've been faced with a lot of changes over the last couple of months, and that's putting it lightly, right? And so, Mike, did you have any specific way? How did you help your students get prepared for an industry certification with distance learning?
The company, well, the distance learning, I haven't done too much preparing for certifications, or our district hasn't quite gotten there yet. We're still getting all the classes going normally, but before then, a lot of, I believe Certiport does it as well, but a lot of companies that offer exams will offer study guides as well. Not necessarily an actual like full study guide with a course outline, but it'll list the topics that they're expected to know, or the objectives that they're expected to know. So sometimes maybe a week, maybe even a month before the exam comes up, you start to go over those objectives and say, remember, some of this might be on the exam, might not, you know, might be part of the certification, and kind of remind them, because a lot of those topics, since we're going through an entire standards list, they might have learned some of that at the beginning of the year. They might have learned that months ago or last year if it's a multi-year course. So you want to remind them of the overview of the exam before they start it. Not necessarily reteaching, but just going over anything they might have missed or asking what they might have missed.
So, Art, does Certiport have some preparation as well?
Definitely, and that's a super important part. Because, like Mike says, a course could go, depending on the program that you're studying or what the topic is. You may be you know, 6-8 weeks in, and the students got to remember stuff they had on the first day of school, and they're going, wait, I remember we talked about this, but where does it go? Having that objectives list public is very important to support. We definitely make sure that's something that's available for a teacher as they're building out courseware, as they're using, as Tanika says, an industry partner to help build the course in the right direction. So those things are available on our site for each of our exams. Some of our programs of study offer a little bit more information as far as practice guides, study guides at no cost, but just about every program we have partnered with partners like you guys, with different learning vendors or learning partners that offer solutions that help in the classroom. I will always say a teacher is irreplaceable. They are the first, the foremost, the inspiration of the classroom, the driver of the product and the program, and helping kids to really just own their own education. And they can't be replaced. But they can also be armed with various tools, various arrows in their quiver that help them to just be that much more effective, whether it's an isolated teacher at one high school doing the best they can with a game design program they know nothing about and building their own standards, or if it's an entire district, like in Tanika's case, that is on a very grand scale trying to open up industry certifications for their students. There are programs that fit and can help a teacher in those classrooms, from learning to practice to then ultimately reach that certification piece. So yeah, we definitely have those things in line for these programs.
And and Tanika, how has Shelby County been able to keep helping students in the midst of COVID and everything that's happened? How have you all been able to still prepare those students for a certification exam?
Well, like Art said, of course, he said it's not him, it's all of Pearson, but he's our territory manager. So of course, we give him all the praise for helping us out. But every certification that we offer, we have practice materials. Every certification that is available to the students, we have practice materials. So for the ones that are available at home, we still have, that software available to all of the students. For the certifications that don't necessarily have like practice tests or practice materials, we pulled a group of teachers together that are lead teachers that wrote, some practice tests. They've taken the test and they wrote some questions and just some practice tests to prepare the students for the exam. So students still have access to it. Most of it is online. And for the tests that are available, they also have practice materials.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that just that's going to piggyback on another question I'm about to ask for everyone to try to give a little feedback on, is tips and tricks, strategies of keeping students motivated while they've been at home, things that, keeping them motivated to keep going, because as long as they're at school, and yes, like Mike said, you can have the virtual job shadowing, you can have different things like that. We've heard some tips that you all have kind of given us subtly as we've been talking this morning, but specific strategies. So any strategy that any of you have used and I'm gonna go ahead and start with Tanika, that you may have used in trying to keep students motivated, while they've been at home.
Well, like I said, specifically for the seniors, it's been tough. I have to admit it has been tough, but specifically for the seniors, just encouraging them, because there's going to be life after high school. And our ultimate goal is to prepare them for whether it's college or career. So we're still trying to encourage them, to keep learning, keep practicing, and try to get that certification. So you will have that trophy to, to prance around with when you graduate. And I think it all goes back to, with the teachers, it's just one key word, it's relationships. It's the relationships that those teachers have built with the students, and just staying in contact and connecting with them and encouraging them to keep going.
That's correct. Mike, any motivation that you all have offered through our pandemic?
So it's a very tough time, honestly, and I mean, we all know that, but a lot of students are going through difficult times at homes, things you probably can't even imagine. So it's been kind of sad to see, like, sometimes not all of your students are showing up to the virtual sessions or aren't able to. and the ones that are there might be a little like down because of everything that's going on. So my worry was that our school district was having us not teach anything new so that nobody missed anything. We were reteaching and recovering topics and making sure that all the learning that they did in school was reinforced. And while that's great, it's also a little boring for some of those students who might already know the material. So I started introducing a lot of discussion and critical thinking questions that are related, but not directly related to the content. For example, in our game design class, after we did our normal stuff in class, I posted a question in Google Classroom along with the video from a Fortnite event. Travis Scott did a concert in Fortnite. So I was like, everyone check out this concert, watch it, and then let me know how you think music and games might integrate in the future as well. And then it starts making me think outside of the box. It starts making me think, oh, well, it's not just what we're learning. We're still kind of like putting it in different contexts and learning about different situations and thinking about the future. So it kind of, I've had a lot more interaction on those types of posts than the standard just covering topics.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's good.
You gotta keep it, keep it fun.
And that was a great, that's, yeah, has Certiport offered anything like to schools in light of everything that's going on?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, one of our first priorities is making sure that the testing opportunity was still there, that it could be done from home, that we could open up those virtual environments and allow students to not miss that opportunity. And we know, we're very, very aware of the fact that not every home is the same, not everyone has the same internet connection or devices or what have you. But even to that end, we have specific responsibilities, specific technical requirements for our testing software in the classroom. And now working in a virtual environment, some of those specific requirements are gone, where in a classroom, we could not previously test on a Chromebook for a Microsoft exam, simply because they don't have the Microsoft Office program on them. But what happens with a student at home who has a Chromebook as their school issued computer they're still able to use and no Microsoft? Can they test? How do we do that? Well, in that virtual environment where we're proctoring and offering the certification exam still, they can. We're hosting that information and holding that for them. So our first priority in these wonderful, extraordinary times were to come up with extraordinary solutions, make sure that learning and practice and testing opportunities were still 100% there. And then just listening to teachers, situations like Mike saying he's looking outside the box and just thought-provoking conversation. I, as a parent, have been incredibly grateful for those types of moments with my elementary, junior high, and high school age boys, as their teachers have thrown them videos or tossed over a question that was outside of what they normally would have covered in class, but it's keeping my kid engaged. And it's, I don't hear about the math homework they're doing, but I definitely hear about the unsolvable problem the teacher sent them that they have been trying to figure out. You know, because they don't care about the math homework, but they're totally intrigued. I have to figure this out. And that moment for a student, at least for me as a parent, has been one of the kind of an unspoken blessing for my kids, just to see them be able to progress. And then, like I said, we're really, where we're not in a classroom, we're just here to support. We're trying to make sure everything we have is available as quickly and as functionally as possible for students and teachers.
Now, all three of you have worked with certifications, helped with certifications. We've talked a lot about certifications. So if you have some students that are struggling and you know that they, them having a certification is going to make a huge difference, right? What would be, and I guess would say, some of the easiest certifications that you would push a kid toward that you know they need that special oomph or push in their life? What would be, and this is just posed to all three of you. Art, I'll come to you first. You were just talking, so I'm gonna come back to you. What's a few of the easiest ones for a student to earn?
So I will be careful in how I answer this politically, so I don't get in trouble with anyone. but I will say that really comes back to the student. Who are you working with? You mentioned earlier that relationship that a teacher has with the student. That's part of what I was mentioning is irreplaceable. The teacher has to be there. There's so much value in having somebody over the shoulder saying, you can do this, and let's take you in this direction. Knowing that relationship with the student and kind of guiding them towards options that are out there is one of the most important things. I will say there are some certifications that we offer that are very, very foundational and really good to start as a base. Whether that's your IC3 digital literacy certification that just talks from the basics of computers, the basics of applications on a computer, and then internet safety and, you know, living, what do we call that? Like living online. Some of those are really important, and I would say a great place to start, because they're going to start a student down a pathway of, do I like working with those applications? Did I like what made the computer tick? Do I want to look more at the web? Which direction do I want to go? And from there, there's so many options. The tree just kind of grows up from the base, and you've got the ability to go in 100 different directions. I've had students sitting in an audiovisual class working with Premiere Pro and barely squeak by. It's not their thing. Now, they'll probably use something of that in their own life, whether that's making a family video or whatever, but it wasn't their thing. But somewhere in that class, they talked briefly about coding, and they talked briefly about maybe CSS and web design, and all of a sudden the student's interest peaked. And if a teacher can pick up on that and point a student towards certification, a lot of times I see those kids run. And it's been my experience, when the student earns one certification, they get that pat on that back, that world of instant gratification where we're always on devices. All of a sudden a certification, you know, I'm waiting for a 4-year high school degree, but I got a certification right now that my mom's proud of, that I shared on a social media platform with a little digital badge that says, I earned this.
Yeah.
And it really flings forward. It's like a slingshot. They all of a sudden go, what's next?
Yeah.
Okay, I earned my certification, whatever, coding, design, whatever that may be. What's next? Where else could this take me? And all of a sudden their horizons start to open up. They find game design, they find web development, they find, you know, maybe coding with Java, and all of a sudden they want more. So you know, foundational exams like IC3, I think, are a good place to start. The Microsoft exams, I think, are very applicable to almost every job listing online right now. I don't know many job listings that you don't open up and they say we want Microsoft skills or Google skills, and those can be almost interchanged in some ways, you know, depending on what the corporation's using. And those I think are a great place to start. My personal favorite, if I had to pick one, PowerPoint. I mean, don't make presentation decks. That was the first thing I learned sitting in my first corporate job, PowerPoint, how to build a slide deck for my boss, you know? And knowing that now, I often am a go-to where people come to me and say, I don't know how to do this, but I need the slide deck to do this. Oh, let's go through that. I have this certification. Let me help you with this, you know? And I don't use it daily, but it's been one of my most clinch certifications I've used in my career.
Tanika, do you want to add to any of that? Like when you're encouraging students and you know, one that you say, oh, we'll help you get this certification. What would be a go-to certification for you?
Well, I think my answer would be two-part on that. So when I think about the certifications, I think any of the Microsoft certifications would be beneficial. The Word, everyone needs to know how to type a document and how to, you know, edit and manipulate their everyone needs to know how to do that, whether you're going to straight to work or to college. So I would say with Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. But then on the flip side, because I'm looking at so many different certifications, I'm looking at all 16 clusters. I'm looking at different programs of study. I would say a general certification would be OSHA team, a general industry certification, because with OSHA, think about it, everyone needs safety on the job.
Right.
Whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in automotive, whether you're in cosmetology and barbering, whether you're in ag, architecture, advanced manufacturing, you need to be safe in the workplace. So if you're looking across the board, I would say OSHA 10. That's a good certification. It's a foundation. And as Art said, you know, from there, they can just start stacking on specific certifications for the area that they're interested in. Yeah. But as a former business teacher, I'm going to say Microsoft certifications.
You know what? Every English teacher in high school and college, every English teacher thanks you for saying Word, because their papers are going to be better because of it. So.
Right. I mean, you're going to have to type papers in high school. You have to do papers in college. If you're a general secretary, if you're a nurse, you've got to know how to type and you got to know how to use the software. Right. So Microsoft is always my go-to.
Yeah, and I like the idea that you brought up OSHA. That's really, really huge in every industry to be safe And, you know, just like you and Art and both have said, you know, just stack the trophies. Let's stack the trophies and let's stack up things that mom can be excited about. Mike, is there anything you would like to add to that as well?
Yeah, I actually think it's funny that you said something mom could be proud about, because it's like it is that kind of thing. It's the adult version of putting something on the fridge, except you're putting it in your resume, you know? It's like a real thing you could show off and say, look, this is me, dude. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed what you guys said about, you know, digital citizenship, art, and OSHA and project management. Those are extremely useful skills from Tanika. Those are great ways to go about it. I also agree with Microsoft. I would go a little further and say most schools are probably, like you said, they have one-on-one Chromebooks, and they've been using Google software because it's free compared to Microsoft. So one that they might want to look into is, if they've been using Chromebooks and Google Slides and Docs all year, go for a Google certification. It's a really big name that everyone recognizes, and they're going to understand that, you know, you have something that you work towards, and it's applicable to most jobs, just like those other certifications mentioned. Google is pretty inexpensive, and they have a lot of different tiers of certification. So you can go everywhere from Slides expert all the way up to like Google Educator. So you could choose where you want to put your student in, and then once they get that first certification, again, it's that kind of thing where they want to stack and keep it going and get that interest.
That's right. And I have to say, I'm Google certified and Microsoft certified. So you know, that's just as an educator and being in the ed tech space. Those are some important ones. All of the Microsoft specialists that encompass all the different levels of Microsoft, and Google Educator encompasses all the different areas of Google. I totally agree with everyone. And believe it or not, we are out of time. This concludes our session. We've had a great conversation. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone in the audience has been able to understand better about industry certifications. I know I have, and I've enjoyed our conversation today working together. Thank you so much, everyone, our panel, especially for joining us today. Now, if you have put a question in chat that we have not gotten to yet, don't worry about that. We're going to follow up with you personally, and we'll provide you an answer. Everyone online will also receive a certificate of participation after you've concluded today. If you want more information from any of our panelists, feel free to reach out to hello@eDynamiclearning.com, and we'll get you connected with our professionals on our panel today. And also, you're welcome to register any of the other summit sessions that we have today. We only have a few more left, but you're welcome. Got some great topics going to end out our summit today. But if you would like to go ahead and sign up for some others for the remaining day, it's tinyurl.com/EDL Summit. And I just have been excited to hear the perspective of all three of our wonderful panelists today, and want to say thank you all so much and wish you the best over the summer and in the next school year.
Nice talking to everyone.
Everyone have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.